will flow. Whispers of the night under moonlit skies. Every word so bright in your minded eyes.
It was about 10 in the morning at the office when I held my cup, sipping from the steaming cocoa drink that I brought along. Suddenly, it was a total blackout for me. The next moment, I felt myself lying on a bed with myriads of faces dancing around me. I couldn't see the faces very clearly. Everything was blurry, and I was oblivious to my immediate environment. I managed to speak, but I could barely utter a monosyllabic word from my mouth. I gave up the effort of speaking and went back to my beautiful sleep. This time, the sleep was purposeful as I saw a very handsome face with dimples, nicely planted on the cheeks. The dentition was perfect, as his teeth were well arranged, like the grains of corn neatly arranged on the cob. The face was smiling at me and begging me to come back. He told me how he had been waiting for me. I gave him a resounding slap on the cheek with the 5 fingers, print visible on the cheek like an imminent holocaust waiting to erupt. "Where have you been?" I asked. "For good 36 years, I waited for you and bore the mockery and misery. All the while, I thought it was just a dream." I was perplexed when I woke up to see the same face staring at me with fingerprints on his cheek. I tried to get up, but it was an abortive effort. I wondered how I summoned strength to slap him when I was still weak. Maybe it was all the accumulated anger in me. This time, I managed to say sorry. The face just smiled at me in return. "Hey Denise, I am Dr. Gary. What am I doing here?" I asked meekly, trying to make up for the hot slaps. "You were rushed in on Friday morning from work. You fainted and have been in a coma for 3 days. You only showed us a positive sign when you opened your eyes an hour ago. Ever since, I have been praying to God to bring you back to us." I was wondering why he was praying to God on my behalf. After all, he was just a doctor. The puzzle on my face gave me out as I could see the knowing smile on his face. "Don't worry, Den. Just try and get some sleep. I have given you medications that will energize you. We can chat more when you wake up." "Don't call me Den. Only my dad calls me that," I protested, even in my feeble state. "And by the way, where are my parents? I can see that you are a real handful. Anyway, I told your parents to go home and get some rest. They have been with you since Friday," he said and tucked me to bed. "For the past 2 days, Doc, Gary made my life at the hospital memorable. We were really getting fond of each other. On Wednesday, I was discharged from the hospital. Dr. Gary accompanied me home. When we got home, my parents quickly darted away from the parlor, giving us privacy. They were aware of the building chemistry between us. "Why did you undergo such fasting at the detriment of your health? Knowing fully well that you are hypoglycemic," Dr. Gary asked. "Religion is good, but wisdom is profitable in all things." "Dr. Gary, I was desperate. Who wouldn't be? At 36, I was still under my father's roof. I was called different names. If death was the only way to reach God, it was a risk that I was willing to take." Dr. Gary made sure that I was okay before he left. When the doctor-patient relationship had ended between Gary and me, he asked me out on a date. We went to a restaurant in the government residential area in Benin Metropolis. After we had our dinner of jollof rice, fried chicken, and salad, we went inside the reserved area and sat on the couch. Dr. Gary held my hands. "Then, my dear, I know you see me as your doctor, but I see you as more than my patient. As a doctor, it is unethical to pursue a romantic relationship with a patient. I decided to wait for our doctor and patient relationship to end before letting you know about my feelings. I have never been passionate about anyone like I am with you. I like you and I really like you. I won't count myself as a very religious person, but I know God well." "I like you too, Gary," I said, as I stared into his soul. I could see sincerity in his eyes. I have waited for this day to come, for someone to confess his love for me. I have longed for the same affection that my father showed towards my mother. I knew that there was chemistry between me and Gary, but I wasn't one to assume things that were not stated. I have something to share with you. Please don't let it affect my chances with you, Gary said. Do you want to tell me that you have a baby girl named Sonia? How did you know that? He asked, with bewildered look on his face. With all smiles, I replied, I saw you and your daughter in my dreams when I was in a coma. He narrated how he met Sonia's mother Abigail on campus. We were both med students. I loved her passionately. After graduation, I was ready to marry her, but her father refused, saying over his dead body, we were from different tribes in Nigeria. Her father vowed that none of his children would marry anyone from a different tribe. She suggested that maybe getting pregnant will change her father's mind. I met her as a virgin, and the first day we made love, she took in. Unfortunately, her pregnancy did not change her father's mind. We were confused and didn't want to leave each other. She went against her father and started staying with me in my house. I wasn't comfortable with it, yet I didn't send her back. I just loved being with her. Her father disowned her, saying that if she didn't return back home, she would lose her inheritance. I begged her to go home, but she refused, saying that her inheritance meant nothing to her without me by her side. I wanted her father's blessings, but Abigail was as stubborn as her father. If I had known, I would have insisted that she went back home. This time, Gary was sobbing. I held on to him and told him to cry and empty his heart. You have been holding on to it for long. It is okay to cry. It will make you free from all the emotions that you have bottled inside, I said to him. He cried for a long time, and I saw pain and relief in his eyes, and my heart bled for him. What happened to her? I asked, cuddling him, and he felt like a big baby in my arms. On the day she delivered our baby, she struggled with her life. The doctors tried all they could, but only Sonia survived. I was too devastated to suggest anything to help. She held my arms and told me to take care of our child. For 5 years, I was broken and refused to move on. My sister Ruth helped me take care of Sonia. She tried to help me, but I wasn't ready to be helped. Since we lost our parents at the age of 10, we practically grew up in the streets. No family relative was willing to help, and she raised me to become the man that I am today with all the hustling and labor she engaged in to make money. I am sure God didn't allow you to meet me in those years because I was wounded. The only way that I coped with depression was my constant dreams about Abigail. She would console me in my dreams. In our last dream, she told me to open my heart to love. She said, the more I dreamt about her, the more time it would take for Denise, the woman for me, to locate me. I hated the woman called Denise, he said, chuckling. The only woman I wanted in my space was Abigail, and was not ready to open my heart to another woman. One night in my dreams, I found myself in a pit, and you helped me out with a long rope. You were dressed like an angel in the dream. That was the turnaround point in my life. That night I prayed for the first time after the incident. I prayed that God should bring you my way. It was fate that brought you my way, he finished. I couldn't control the tears that were flowing down my face. I have waited 36 years for a day like this to find my dream man. All the guys that came my way were plain irresponsible. How could I, a mere mortal, understand the ways of God? That night, I thanked God for prayers answered, and that was the beginning of a blissful relationship. Everything changed in my life. I had Mondays to Fridays to work as the production manager of the Wallace food processing company. On Saturdays, I enjoyed the company of Gary and Sonia, his 5-year-old daughter. Sonia was a chatterbox. We connected from the first day we met. She was glad to have another female figure in her life, outside Auntie Ruth, for the 2 months I had known them. They became an integral part of my life. Even Auntie Ruth was very nice to me. She was single at 45 and never had been married. I knew almost everything about Sonia. She told me her best friends were Amanda and Seth and that noodles, 5 alive pulpy orange juice, and cake were her best foods. When she even realized I worked in a company that makes noodles, she included me on her best friends list. It was a tradition for Gary to drive us to the salon every first Saturday of the month to change our looks. This beautiful Saturday, he called me to dress up as usual. As they were on their way to my house, I managed to crawl out of bed. Yesterday, I had a very busy day at the office. I worked till 11 p.m., and we were trying to meet up the 1-ton order of noodles by our customers in Ghana. I was in the bathroom having my bath when Gary and Sonia drove into my parents' compound. My daddy ushered them in. He was the only one at home. Mummy left already for a church program. He made them comfortable with chilled bottles of drinks. I took my time to pick a beautiful blue dress with a black sandal and bag to go. I perfected all the skills of makeup that I have acquired from YouTube, with my sweet-smelling perfume to complement my look. When I descended the stairs, I saw Sonia displaying her talents with Daddy, and Gary occupied himself with his phone. When he saw me, he could barely take his eyes off me. I smiled within myself. I don't joke with my looks. It boosts my confidence as a woman, especially when my man is impressed. Immediately, Sonia saw me. She ran as fast as her tiny legs could carry her, and threw her arms around me. Good morning, Auntie Denise. Good morning, Princess Sonia. How are you today? I am fine. My daddy has not given me food since morning. Auntie Ruth traveled to Dubai to buy clothes for her boutique. She said she would be back by Monday. My daddy does not know how to cook. Even when he tries, his food is always bad, complained Sonia. Daddy and Gary burst into laughter. Must you report me to everyone today? You already told Daddy here, queried Gary. Don't worry. We will make sure we punish Daddy for starving you. But before we do that, let's hurry to the salon and grab some snacks on the way. I will go home with you guys to prepare good food for you, I said, winking at Gary. You are the best auntie ever, Sonia said and hugged me again. Best auntie now, not best friend again. Dramatic, Sonia, said Gary. Thank you, sir, for the drinks. We will take our leave now, Gary said to my dad. It was a pleasure. Please take care of my girl. You know she is all that I've got. Don't hesitate to bring Sonia along next time. I really love her company, replied my daddy. Sure, sir. Gary took me by his right hand and Sonia with the other hand, as he led us out to the car. Good morning, dear, I greeted him. Good morning, honey. You look flawless. I think you should wear this blue gown every day. It complements your skin. Daddy, I think you should just marry her, chipped in Sonia. Marry? We both asked and turned to Sonia in surprise. Yes, Seth even told my teacher yesterday that he will marry me in a church, she stated as a matter of fact. We couldn't help it as we burst into laughter. Tell me what a 5-year-old knows about marriage. We drove off to the salon. We made simple hairstyles. I braided my hair, and Sonia made big braids with ribbons to design them, and not without her orange juice and cake. Gary waited for us at the reception hall, where he was seeing a football match. After we finished from the salon, I told Gary to drive us to the market so I could get foodstuffs. Sonia and I went into the market to shop for soup, stew, and sauce items. I also included a pack of orange juice for Sonia, who constantly reminded me to add it to my list. We finished and went back to the car and drove to Jerry's house. Madam Chatterbox is not saying anything, said Gary, when we were close to the house. I turned back and saw her sleeping peacefully. She is sleeping. I thought as much. When she is quiet, it is either she is sleeping or doing something mischievous. Seriously. Yea, when Peter came to visit me, everywhere was quiet, and I thought she was watching cartoons on her tab. I just decided to check on her, to be sure. It was too late. She had worn Ruth's makeup all over her face in a funny way, and turned the room upside down. I am so falling in love with her right now, I replied, laughing and trying to imagine the picture in my head. You are unbelievable. You love her for turning the house upside down. One day, she will start begging me to allow her to wear makeup out of the house at her age. Come on, there is never a dull moment with a child like that. On the other hand, who said she can't wear makeup at this age? I asked teasingly at him, pouting my lips. Stop doing that to me if you want me to drive home safely. Don't you know you have a killer lip? He bit his lips and focused on his driving with a mock-serious look. Finally, we arrived home, and Jerry's eyes were lingering all over my body. Madame Chatterbox was still sleeping. Gary carried her to the room and came back to help me with the remaining stuff. Immediately, we headed straight to the kitchen to start the food. I needed to start early so I could cook the different soup, stew, and sauce that I planned for. I wanted Sonia and Gary to have good food to eat. Baby, I know I cook bad food, but your boy is at your service, Gary said, grinning at me. Your presence here is a worthy service, I replied, grinning back at him. Okay then, give me 5 minutes to change into something comfortable, and I will be right back. No problem. I was rushing over the food, trying to blend the tomatoes, and at the same time season the chicken. Why are you rushing? Can't you spend the night with us? Jerry's voice startled. You scared me. For how long have you been there? About 10 minutes. I have been watching how you make cooking look effortless. But you seem to be in a hurry. The time is far spent. I don't want to get home very late, I replied, still focusing on my food. He came closer and held me on my waist. Please stay the night, he whispered into my ears. I turned around to face him. You know how much I would have loved. However, it is difficult staying around you without getting carried away, especially when you are this close. And your eyes devouring me like this. You make it difficult for me to keep my vows with. I couldn't even complete my sentence when I succumbed to the fingers of temptation. Those big brown eyes were irresistible. His lips on mine felt like paradise. His hands impatiently searched for my zippers. Deep in my thoughts, a voice echoed to me. Are you going to give up all your years of waiting in this kitchen? I just couldn't stop myself. I consoled myself that I was giving myself to the man after my own heart. He skillfully turned me around and sat me on the kitchen cabinet. Baby, your body can turn a man into an Oliver Twist. Oh, how I love you, Denise, he moaned. He was still struggling with the zip of my gown when the smell of the burning chicken brought us back to reality. Oops, I exclaimed and moved away from the cabinet and from temptation. I was relieved because that was nearly close. I put off the gas stove and faced him. What if Sonia had met us in such a compromising position? Come on, she is still sleeping. Moreover, I shut the kitchen door, he said, coming closer. So you had it all planned out. Here I was, thinking it was spontaneous. I was getting irritated as I moved away from him. Oh, did you plan this with Sonia? Did you tell her to ask me to cook so you could get into my pants? I hated myself for being weak. No. Denise, I am so sorry. I know you told me that you would love to wait until our wedding night, but seeing you in this blue gown, I have been having visions of you in my bed. I tried to talk myself out of it, but I guess I have been sex-starved for too long. When he realized that I didn't bulge, he continued again, but this time in a childish voice, Auntie Denise, I am sorry. My third leg has a mind of its own. The spirit is willing, but this flesh here is weak, he said, hitting his manhood slightly. I couldn't help but laugh. You are a naughty doctor, I replied. Does that mean I have been forgiven? On the condition that you will help me fry those chickens in the pot. I will gladly do that, as long as tasting is allowed. Before I could say jack, Gary carried and raised me on his shoulders. Put me down, I protested. Is it because I am petite? I can carry you on my shoulders and run a marathon without feeling anything, he said teasingly. Don't worry, I will start eating from this moment to gain more weight, and by then it will be impossible for you to carry me, I replied. I doubt if you can add more weight. You work like crazy. He finally placed me down, and we continued our cooking together. I fell deeper in love with the man who stole my heart without warning. It was about 4:10 p.m. on the 23rd of November, making it a year since I met Gary. I had been busy receiving birthday calls from friends, and loved ones, but not a single call from Gary. Had he been so busy that he couldn't drop a text? At least a minute call would have been appreciated. I even tried calling him, but he didn't pick his calls, and this made me worried. I had closed for the day, and there was still no sign of Jerry's car outside. Immediately, I received a call from Peter, Jerry's friend, telling me Gary was down with a fever and that I should come home to meet him. With my 5 senses alert, I hurriedly called a taxi and drove straight to his house. As I stepped into the house, everywhere was quiet and a bit dark. I started calling Gary in panic. Unexpectedly, the light came on. Sonia came out of her hiding place with a cake. Ruth came out with wrapped gift items. And Peter was holding 2 bottles of wine. They were carousing, "Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday. Happy birthday. Happy birthday to you." And Peter echoed hip, 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 and everyone thundered hooray. I was touched and felt loved. All I could utter was thank you, with tears stuck in my eyes. "Where is Gary?" I asked. "He is relaxing upstairs. He wanted us to give you the surprise birthday party on his behalf," replied Peter. "Oh, my baby." I ran upstairs to meet him. He was sweating all over and sleeping peacefully like a baby. I sat by his side, and I couldn't control the tears streaming down my face. "What is wrong with you?" I asked myself. It is not as if he is dying. This time, I pulled myself together and wiped my eyes with my handkerchief. I adjusted him on the bed to create room for me to lie close to him. When he felt my hand on his body, he woke up and greeted me weakly. "How are you feeling?" I asked. "I am getting better." "Have you been crying?" he asked. I simply nodded. "So you love me this much?" he asked mockingly. "Is it not a well-known fact?" "I am blushing," he replied, flashing his perfect dentition. "You are a wonderful man. In your state, you were still able to carry on with the surprise party for me." "Words are not enough to describe you," I said. "You are a beautiful woman too, with a beautiful heart. Just see the way you have embraced and taken care of Sonia. I bless the day you walked into my life. If I was the one who left a child behind, I would want someone to take good care of her," I said, then hugged him and didn't want to let go. "I love you, baby," he whispered into my ears. "I love you too. Have you taken your medications?" I asked. He nodded in response. "How about you? Have you eaten dinner?" When I was told that you were sick, I totally forgot about my hungry stomach. My stomach rumbled as if reminding me about my hungry state. "Wow, am I not blessed among women who can't do without me?" He winked at me. "Who can't do without you? Stop feeling important with the way you were sobbing." "My dear, I have bragging rights," he said as he managed to climb out of bed. "Where are you going?" I asked. "Just give me a minute. I will be right back." Everyone came upstairs with him. They brought the party to his room. We were dining, drinking, and chatting. I noticed Jerry's stare once in a while resting on me. Ruth brought the fruit salad she made for us. And as I was picking my fruits with the plastic fork, my fork struck an object. Lo and behold, I found a gold ring. Gary came forward and went on his knees. "I have always had it in my mind to do this on your birthday. Today, I told myself that fever cannot stop me. Denise, would you do me the honor of being my wife? Oh my God. Somebody please pinch me and tell me I am dreaming." This is the question that I have been waiting for a good 36 years. "Denise, will you marry me?" Jerry's voice brought me back, me out of my revelry. "Oh baby, yes I will." With a clapping ovation, he hugged me tightly. He helped me slide the ring in my finger and held my hands in his. In that moment of excitement, he gave me a passionate kiss filled with 1,000 stars of love. On the 11th of February, 2006, Gary and I exchanged our marital vows in front of our families and friends at St. Peter's Catholic Church. Our wedding was more blissful than I ever imagined, as I bonded with the man of my soul. I moved into Jerry's home. I was no longer the visiting girlfriend. I had no problem sharing my home with Ruth, and I prayed to the Lord to still find her a partner that would cherish her. 1 month into our marriage, I got pregnant. Everyone testified that I looked prettier in marriage. Gary doted on the 3 of us. He really knew how to balance out his love for everyone in the house. Never for once did he make us compete for his love, and he created boundaries for us. Ruth, on the other hand, was a passionate woman. She was too kind to a fault, especially when it came to me. On the 23rd of September, when I was 6 months pregnant, Gary traveled to Canada for a medical conference for a month. I overheard Ruth on the phone in her room and couldn't believe my ears. She stepped out of her room and saw me standing in shock. "How long have you been standing there?" she asked. "Enough to know that underneath that kind facade lies an evil woman," I replied. After that incident, the dynamics between Ruth and I changed. We became sworn enemies. When Gary and I spoke on the phone through video calls, I tried to maintain my cool. I watched over Sonia like an eagle watches her eaglet, keeping her far away from Ruth. I was no longer comfortable with Ruth around the house, and she made life unbearable for me. I was relieved when Gary arrived, being an observant husband. It didn't take up to 2 days for him to notice the discord between Ruth and myself. "Baby, what happened when I left? Did you fight with my sister?" he asked me in bed. "Nothing happened. I just want my privacy as a family. I want to be with my family without interference from relatives," I lied. "I can't believe my ears." "You are joking, right? Why didn't you tell me this before marriage when we talked about it?" he asked, sitting down this time. "I didn't want to tear you guys apart." "And what do you think you are doing right now, gluing us together?" he asked sarcastically. "Please bring back my sweet Den. I don't know what happened to her when I was away. If anything happened between you and Ruth, please forgive her, so we can remain one sweet, loving family. I always look forward to meeting you all when I close for the day from work," he said. "Nothing happened," I insisted. "How can I bring myself to tell him? I don't want him hating the only sister he has. I just want to focus on my family," I replied. "If you can't tell me what happened, then she stays. Women quarrel over petty things, but you shouldn't allow it to affect us. I have never put her above you in this house. Am I lacking in my love for you?" he asked, trying to coddle me. I could see the hurt in his eyes. I knew keeping it away from him was the best. "It is not about you or Ruth. It is about what I want." "You are being selfish, Den. If I send Ruth away now, one day, you will tell me to send Sonia away to—" "Don't say that. You know I love Sonia very much," I replied indignantly. "I don't know what to believe. Den, I don't need this right now," he said and walked out of our room. My heart went with him. I knew I was doing the right thing by keeping him in the dark. I needed to protect everyone. The next morning, I arranged his bags and sorted out the gifts he bought for everyone. When I noticed I was running late, I left the bags and quickly made breakfast and got Sonia ready for school, trying to create a scene in front of her brother. Ruth insisted on taking Sonia to school. "I have told you that I will be the one taking her to school myself," I replied. "But I have been the one taking her to school before you came to this house," she fired back at me. This time, I could feel Gary staring at me, and when I looked at him, shock rather than anger was plastered all his face. "Auntie, please, let's not drag this. I have decided to be doing this myself. I am not complaining. You are not the mother of this child, and you can never be. You can't deceive me with your niceness. You think I don't know your type. You come acting all nice, and then show us your true colors when we least expect it," Ruth said. "What is she trying to do? Is she trying to turn the table on me?" I asked myself. A child is a gift from God. It doesn't matter if the child comes from one's womb or not. You can say whatever you want to say. I don't care. But I don't know what you are playing at. But one thing I know is that you are leaving this house.
Step into the light, feel the stories glow. Palm lantern ignite, where the tales will flow. Whispers of the night, under moonlit skies. Every word so bright, in your mind it lies. Lantern light guides you through the night.